Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be a timely and insightful discussion on regional geopolitics in the Middle East. I'm your host, Murat Tahmazov, and I'm honored to welcome a distinguished guest who will help us better understand the historical and contemporary dynamics shaping relations between Iran and Turkey. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Houchang Hassan-Yari. Dr. Hassan-Yari is a professor of political science and the special assistant to the principal for national and international liaison at the Royal Military College of Canada. Dr. Hassan-Yari, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. I just have to make a correction. The information you mentioned, it's a bit old in the sense that since then I resigned from my position, but still emeritus professor at the Royal Military College of Canada. So I'm not assistant to the principal anymore, but I continue to be involved with the college at Royal Military College of Canada.
Then if you want to be, I can reintroduce you from beginning.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, and let's begin with a historical perspective. There has been a long-standing rivalry between empires based in the territories of modern-day Turkey and Iran, from the Roman-Persian wars to the Ottoman-Safavid conflicts. In your view, what was the main reason behind this pattern of rivalry, and do you believe geography naturally drives both civilizations or both countries to compete over the same resources and over the same territories or strategic spaces?
Yes, as you mentioned, the Persian Empire is a very, very old empire. At some point, that empire ruled over a territory from half of Indian subcontinent to the Mediterranean Sea, and then going through different centuries, different conflicts, wars. So the territory became bigger, smaller, and as you mentioned, now we are dealing with what Iran is in this its geography. And the modern Turkey as well. So the main or the most important problem that existed or rivalry existed between the Persian Empire at that time, we are talking about the Safavid Empire, 1501 they came to power, and the Ottoman Empire was mostly related to their understanding and interpretation of what Islam was about. Ottomans, they were Sunnis, Safavids, they were Shia, the Twelvers, and consequently, each of them claimed to be the leader of the Islamic world. For the Ottomans, they thought that they were the legitimate successors of the caliphs and others. For the Persians and the Safavid, they believed that the real successor of Prophet Muhammad should be Ali, Imam Ali. And consequently for them, so the Shias, they were the true and authentic Muslims. That was really the religious rivalry. We see that, or the residues of that kind of conflict today in the region. And in a larger world of Islam, if I can talk about the world of Islam, between Sunnis and the Shias, is not anymore the same problem between the Iran and Turkey, but nevertheless, we can see somewhere in the region whatever is left or the leftover of history. So the ideology was a big problem. It was the main driver. The other factor explaining the rivalry between the two powers was territory. And then in that sense, the first major war between the two empires was in 1514, Chalderan, and after that, other conflicts continued for more than, let's say, 30 years or so. Off and on, they were in conflict. During those conflicts, the Persian Empire lost a good chunk of its territory, including the current or the present city of Baghdad, part of eastern Anatolia, now Turkey, and so territory, resources were the other factors, and then obviously the personality. So we can say that those are the main factors explaining the kind of problem that existed between the two powers. In terms of geography, obviously geography determines who is who is what, and what kind of relationships should exist between the neighbors. So in that sense, yes, geography is extremely important. For example, if the Ottoman Empire was located in a different region in the world, or even in the Middle East, that might be the relationship between the two empires might be different. The same thing about the Persian Empire. So geography was determinant, and continues to be today an important really factor in the relationship between Iran and Turkey, although we are not talking about the same kind of hot war between the two countries, but nevertheless there are different type of problems that exist today. We can come back talking about them later on.
Okay, thank you for your detailed answer. And turning now to a more speculative but pressing concern, with increasing talk of potential US and Israel-led strikes against Iran, how likely do you think it is that Turkey would get involved, whether directly or indirectly? And what factors do you believe would most influence Ankara's decision, whether it be NATO obligations, regional alliances, or internal political considerations?
Yeah, this is a good question. You mentioned NATO. I don't think Turkey, as a member of NATO, is going to get involved in any kind of the conflict that you described, for the simple reason that if you look at the charter of the organization, one member should be attacked by a country for the organization to get involved against the aggressor. In this case, we are talking about part of the U.S. armed forces in the region. The nature of the conflict is different. So I don't think Turkey is going to get involved in this kind of ongoing problems between Israel, U.S. on one hand, and the Islamic Republic of Iran on the other. It doesn't. Obviously, I do not mean that if a conflict happens, Turkey will not be impacted. Turkey, like other countries in the region, they will be impacted. And then the question, or the thrust of your question, is that it might be a conflict between U.S. Israel on one hand and the Islamic Republic on the other. As you know very well, the problem is related to the nuclear program of the Islamic Republic. Most importantly, is related to this desire by the leaders of the Islamic Republic, Khomeini and Khamenei, to destroy Israel. If you read what they wrote or listen to what they say, those two leaders, as reason to destroy Israel, you cannot really find anything that relates Iran to Israel. Territorially, they are not neighbors; they are distant. Israel never ever was involved in a war against the Islamic Republic. On the contrary, before the 1979 revolution in Iran, Iran and Israel, they had decent relations. At that time, the Shah of Iran was obviously supporting the case of or the cause of the Palestinians, while he had a very good relation with the Israelis. A bit like Turkey just a few years ago in that regard. So the destruction of Israel was the other problem or other source of tension between the two. And as you know, in this regard, for example, Turkey never ever questioned the legitimacy of the state of Israel. The Islamic Republic does. You mentioned also the proxies. So in order to destroy Israel, the Islamic Republic of Iran spent billions of dollars to create those terrorist groups or those existing groups helping them. And then the end result is that Israel could physically destroy them. If you talk about Hamas, talking about Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip, or Hezbollah in Lebanon, they are not a decent military force threat against Israel anymore. Another group created or just financed and armed by the Islamic Republic is Hashti Sha'bis in Iraq. They also are somehow in the process of being disarmed by the Iraqi government and absorbed in the military forces in Iraq, and they are not playing any role anymore. And the last group is the Houthis. They continue to be active with the Islamic Republic drones and the missiles they get, but them too, they have a very, very limited, really, military capabilities to harm Israel. And then, if you look at the larger picture of the region, in the neighborhood of Turkey, in the south, you have Syria. Syria was the most important ally to the Islamic Republic of Iran during the Iran-Iraq War of 1980-88. The Syrian government was actively helping the Islamic Republic against the fellow Ba'athist group in Iraq. So Islamic Republic invested heavily in Syria precisely to play the role of a bridge between Iran and Lebanon in order for the Islamic Republic to feed Hezbollah militarily by the arms, and but also financially by giving billions of dollars to that group. So and then suddenly Syrian regime disappears from the map. Now Islamic Republic has to deal with the new reality in the region.
I'm sorry. My next question is actually pretty related to what you're talking right now. So it would be better if I ask this question before you delve further into the topic. The next question will be about specifically the situation in Syria. In light of the recent fall of the Assad regime and the ascendancy of HTS and other Turkish-backed groups, how might this reshape the balance of power between Turkey and Iran, especially in the regional geopolitics, considering their long-standing differences over the Syrian conflict since the civil war started?
Yeah, the impact is going to be major. Major in the sense that I was saying that Syria was really the jewel of Iranian or Islamic Republic intervention in the region. Thanks to the Assad regime, the Islamic Republic could feed Hezbollah, could feed other groups, including the Palestinians in the region, to fight their fight against Israel, because the Islamic Republic always claimed that if they don't go to the Israelis will come to them. They said the same thing about ISIS. So in other words, the Islamic Republic spent that huge amount of money in order to keep the Israelis far from its territory, although, as I said earlier, Israel never ever threatened the existence of Islamic Republic or attacking even the Islamic Republic. But Khomeini and Khamenei had the design for Israel that I mentioned earlier. So with the fall of Assad regime, obviously we are in a very new territory. We don't know what is going to happen with the group that is now the mastering the politics and the life in Syria. If the HDS, as you mentioned, they are able to reform themselves as negative Islamist terrorist group, they make the journey to a state group making ruling over the country, then that is going to change the whole dynamic. You mentioned rightly that Turkey is a big player. Islamic Republic is almost completely disappeared from the Syrian scenery. Even the new power in Damascus, they don't want Islamic Republic to open its embassy in Damascus. So it shows really the level of diminishing the power of the Islamic Republic and the rise of Turkish power in the region. If the Turks do not play their cards intelligently, I believe that could backfire. Intelligently in the sense that there is no interest for Turkey to get involved with the Syrian Kurds. After the Öcalan peace offer and now dismantlement of that group, I don't think really the Kurds in Syria, they have any desire to get into conflict with the Turks. For a number of reasons. They don't have the military power, they don't have the resources, they don't have the political will as well, I believe, and they are not looking for the creation of a Kurdish state. So if, on the contrary, the Turkish government pushes new masters of Damascus to reach out to the other groups, Alawites in Syrian Alawites, and also Kurds in that country, plus the other smaller groups, then if they create a kind of national unity government, they will reinforce not only the position of the new power in Damascus, but also, I would argue, the legitimacy of great relations with Turkey. But if they become a kind of proxy this time for Turkey, that is going to put them in a very difficult situation, and then we can expect raising tensions between Turkey and the Arab countries in the region. The Arab countries who are now delighted to see the end of Assad regime. This is why they precipitate their helps to the new regime, including what happened just 2-3 days ago in Riyadh, when al-Shara, the new master of Syria, under the invitation or pressure by Mohammed bin Salman, he presented this situation to Donald Trump, and then there was a short meeting between Trump and al-Shara. This is major, really. It's major. It gives a new level of legitimacy to the new power in Damascus. Consequently, this is good for Turkey, but also is good, I believe, for the peace and for the tranquility in the region, because the Islamic Republic is going to be isolated further. The Islamic Republic, we know, that was the source of all kinds of problems in the region. Now they are excessively weakened, and they do not have the same power and the same resources they had in the past in order to play a significant role. So I believe what the Israelis said and what the Americans and the Saudis said in the past few days about new Middle East and a new dynamic based not on rivalry, on tensions, conflict, and so forth in the region, then we can see a new Middle East where ideology is not going to play the role that it used to. Islam is going to be respected by those who are Muslims, but Islam is not going to occupy the center of all activities, conflicts in the region. And consequently, this will relieve the people in the region for the first time in a very, very long history of conflicts and tensions in the region to be concerned by other things, by education, by economic development, by developing new relations with their neighbors and so forth. So I think what happened since the fall of Assad in Syria it reinforces the position of a number of countries, obviously Arabs, but also Turkey, and isolates the Islamic Republic of Iran. If you follow the news in Tehran, the regime is in a very, very bad shape. They lost almost everything they had in the region. They lost all those billions of dollars of not investment, but the money they gave different groups, created, maintained, armed, financed different groups, and now they are not in a position to create any problems, I believe, for the region. Although Khamenei mentioned right after the fall of Assad, he invited the brave, and this is what he said, brave Syrian youth to take arms against the new group in power in Syria. But I think that is more rhetoric than anything else. So there is an opportunity for Turkey and for other countries in the region to go back to look at their policies of the past, review them, and try to restart or start anew done in their relations with the region. So in that sense, I would say that although Islamic Republic is extremely weak, but has some leverage in Turkey, for example, or in Iraq, to foment problems in those two countries if they decided to do that. Although here I'm talking about maybe there are some Shias in Iraq or some Shia or Kurd in Turkey who might be interested in the appeal coming from Tehran. But the counter argument is that Islamic Republic is not in a position to do that. They have a lot of problems to overcome under the immense pressure from not only the Americans but the Europeans. The neighboring countries, they are not necessarily in good footing, in good relations with them. The tensions continue to exist, and consequently, the Islamic Republic is going to be under a huge threat from inside of the country. So now many university teachers, students, and workers, labor in Iran, they talk about the necessity to change the system, the entire system to be changed. And so if that development happens in Iran, we will see a much brighter relations in the region between the states, between the countries, and again, maybe for the first time in a very long time, we can see new values take over in relations between the neighboring countries instead of competition for more territory, for more influence, for more resources, and so forth. So I would say that in the final analysis, what's important is that now all the countries in the region, including the Islamic Republic, although I'm very pessimistic about them, the other countries in the region, they have a big opportunity and to seize and to re-establish different kind of relations among themselves and based on common interests, not necessarily common values, because values are something related to the national culture and so forth, so to have a new start. Islamic Republic, if it continues to exist, I believe they cannot lose or change the core of their existence, which is, if you look at their constitution, that is based on the duty for the Islamic Republic to help all oppressed people in the world. So it means that if there are any oppressed people in Turkey or in the neighboring countries, the Islamic Republic has the obligation to go to rescue them, to help them, and obviously that means interference in the internal affairs of other countries, and consequently the continuation of the policies that we see exercised by the Islamic Republic since 1979. So the essence of the regime, I believe, is not going to be changed, because if they change it, it means the end of them. And this is why I mentioned earlier, I'm pessimistic about the change in the policy, in the behavior, and in the actions of the Islamic Republic in the region. So the region, I believe, is starting a new path towards economic development, and there is a need for diplomacy in those countries to be activated to create a new environment for cooperation rather than confrontation.
Dr. Hassan-Yari, thank you again for your time and for sharing your expertise with us. Your perspectives have helped us better understand the complexities of the relations between Iran and Turkey and the broader geopolitical landscape of the region. It's been a real honor to speaking with you today, and I'm sure our viewers have learned a great deal from your insights. And thank you once again, and to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and see you soon.
Thank you very much for your invitation.